Welcome back, everybody. We're going to get started here in about 60 seconds. So 60-second warning before we get the next session started. So find your seats as quick as you can, please. As we're waiting for everybody to sit back down, a quick reminder, if you'd like to come to the cocktail hour tonight, you can go to the front desk. It's going to be at Ragusa 360. If you want transportation, in the lobby at 8 o'clock tonight, so please be there on time so we can get you transportation back and forth to the cocktails a little bit later. So we'll wait for 30 more seconds. I see some last minute stragglers coming in. We'll start the next session. And we'll get this started. So the next conversation we have is going to be a very important one. We've got one of our board members, Kati Isef, up here, and additionally Alice Steinglass. The topic of this conversation I think is very relevant to what's going on both in the region but also globally as well. The concept is on the future of work. How do we prepare the nation to succeed and lead? So Kati and Isef, here you go.
So thank you for joining us today for this Spotlight Chat with Alice. So we'll talk tech, future of jobs, how education can evolve to meet the needs of tomorrow's job, and what Macedonia can do now to prepare and lead in that future. So we're very fortunate to have Alice here with us today. Welcome, Alice.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
So a Harvard-educated tech veteran that has led software innovations in augmented reality, Xbox, Microsoft Office, and currently the president of Code.org, an organization that is very near and dear to my heart. So I'm going to start by asking you, how many of you have heard either of Code.org or their annual event, the Hour of Code? So you can just raise your hands.
I have.
Oh. So I see a few hands out there, but still a lot of people haven't heard, so I'm going to briefly tell you about it. So if you haven't heard, Code.org is an organization that makes the most popular computer science courses for kids. They have over 30 million students involved in their courses. And their annual event, the Hour of Code, is a global movement that's in about 180 countries. 180 countries. Alice, that's a lot of countries. So can you tell us, like you're working basically on CS education, on computer science education with 180 countries.
Yes.
Why are all these countries doing this? Why does this matter?
Yeah, what we hear, so this has been a sea change. Just in the last 6 years, 25 countries around the world have announced new plans to bring computer science education into their school systems. And what we see is, a lot of the themes that you heard this morning. The world is changing. The workforce is changing. And countries are trying to figure out how to prepare for that changing workforce. If, for example, in America, there are currently 3 million truck drivers. There are 3.3 million cashiers. Those jobs are jobs today, but people are looking forward and saying, what happens when we have self-driving cars? I was just reading an article about cashiers. Some of these fast food restaurants are replacing with the little screens, which you'd be like, oh, the little touch screen's not as good. Turns out people order more because they order dessert when they're ordering from a computer instead of a human.
You want to be seen?
I know. They're willing to order the ice cream. And so that's the sort of thing that companies are, changing, and that's the sort of thing that countries are concerned about, right? It's not just about how do I think about the workforce today, it's where's that workforce going? Forrester did a prediction of what was going to happen, and they say that in the next 8 years, 16% of jobs will be automated. PricewaterhouseCoopers estimated that in 15 years, it's going to be 35%. McKinsey said it's going to be over 45%. I don't know which one of these is right, But I do know that there's real concern about how we prepare our students for that workforce of tomorrow. And it isn't just the jobs like driving a truck. It's also, some of these higher paid jobs, like a radiologist, right? Stanford recently did this, some work with machine learning. They took publicly available radiology pictures, I don't know, I'm not a doctor, of pneumonia. And in just 1 month, their computers were able to outperform the human experts. They started in September. By November, they were outperforming. And that's concerning. And I think that's why these countries are trying to get ahead of it.
Yeah, so it sounds like, as we hear this, we might think, oh my God, are we hearing bad news here? But, is anything good coming with that? Are the new kinds of jobs becoming available?
Yeah, these changes are always hard. Some people are calling this the fourth industrial revolution. And, like previous changes in the economy, there's both the loss, but there's also opportunity here. If we look back at America 100 years ago, 50% of the population in America was working on farms. 50%. Today, it's under 5%. And that doesn't mean that the other 45% are unemployed. The jobs have changed. The economy has changed. And that's something we don't just see in America, we see it around the world. And I think what's happening now is there's an opportunity to prepare the workforce for these new jobs, these jobs of the future. Just looking backward over the last 15 years, Brookings found that the number of highly digital jobs, more than tripled. The number of non-digital jobs is going down. But these new jobs, these jobs that are being created, they pay more, which is great. Yeah. They pay, the highly digital jobs paid more than twice as much as the non-digital jobs. We heard earlier today about Lithuania and Estonia that are investing in this future, and they're building new economies and new jobs around this changing economy. I think there's a real opportunity for that. The challenge is that if the workforce isn't prepared for that, it's hard to take advantage of it. So right now in America, there are I have the number here, 480,000 open computing jobs in America. But last year, only 62,000 students graduated with computer science degrees. So there's this huge gap here where, we're trying to figure out how do we take our students and prepare them for these jobs that are not only in the future, they exist right now and they're unfilled. And that's something we don't just see in America, we see that around the world.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that from what you're saying, it really reminds me of a quote of Satya Nadella, Microsoft CEO. And when he talks about economic growth and productivity, he says that education plus innovation multiplied by the intense use of new technology is what over a long period of time creates productivity and economic growth.
Yeah. Okay. That's a fancy equation. But let me see if I got that. There's 3 pieces there that I think you can break down, right? There is education, which obviously I'm very passionate about, but I'll put that aside for now. Innovation and the intensity of tech use. All of those are really key to supporting this new digital economy. The Macedonian people are actually ahead on the intensity of tech use. We were looking up the stats. Did you know 79% of people here are connected to the internet? That's actually more than a lot of European countries. It's more than Portugal, Italy, Poland. So tech use, we've got tech use. And then the next piece you were talking about is innovation. And I actually think innovation and education are coupled very tightly together. I think you unlock creativity, you unlock innovation when you give students that opportunity to express themselves. What we find in a lot of schools around the world is that they're aware that digital is important. Mm-hmm. They're aware that computers are important. But they're not really, the teachers aren't fully equipped to teach students how to be creators on those computers. So instead what they're doing is teaching them how to be users of the computers. It's sort of like if our schools taught reading but not writing, right? Reading's important. Everybody should learn how to read. And if you teach all the students how to read, they can read history, they can read poetry, they can read the news, That's great. But imagine if our schools here didn't teach the students how to write. They would read somebody else's version of the history or the news, but you would never see the Macedonian history written or the Macedonian poetry. And I think that that's the hard part for schools, is to teach the students not only how to use the applications or use the internet, but how to be the creators of those applications, the technology, the internet, and that's really what we want to enable. And when you do, I mean, kids are amazing. They're very creative. My kid just made an app where you fight aliens, and if you get hit, he recorded his sister crying.
Oh, okay.
I didn't ask him how he got that recording, but he wanted to make it very authentic, right? So, you know, that's kind of fun, but I think...
Ryan is in trouble.
Right, he is. But I don't, it's not just about the fun, it's about unleashing that economic opportunity. I just met Steve, okay, I got his name here, Anufsky. Steve Anufsky is going to be on this panel later today. And I think it's a perfect example of using technology and innovating to create new jobs right here. All of his engineers are graduated from Finky, and they're working here in Skopje. And they have built a company that allows labor to be more easily hired for conventions, for hotels. And that technology is being used other places. So they're selling that to America, but the innovation is happening here. And they've got engineers here that are able to build that. And that's the kind of innovation that I think we can create when you unlock the potential. But it's not just tech companies. This is actually one of those myths. People assume that the only reason to get a computer science degree is to work in tech. Actually, 2/3 of the jobs are not in tech. It is every other industry. You know, it is clothing companies that are looking at how to use data and machine learning and AI to innovate, to be able to do new things. It's retail, it's factories. So this is really about every industry.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think by now we're all convinced that we should be teaching computer science. I'm really wondering, like, how much should the schools teach? Like, should we all know how to, like, optimize SQL queries and build reliable distributed systems?
No. I think Kati needs to know that, because she actually runs an engineering team that is doing distributed real-time technology on SQL queries. But I actually don't know how to do that. And I've been able to do a lot in technology. You know, here's how I think about it. There is a base level of understanding technology, and it's more than coding. It's more than just being able to write code, that everybody should understand, because that's the world we live in. If I think about what I learned when I was in school, one of the things we all learn is biology. I am not a doctor. I am not a nurse. If you break something, Kati, don't ask me to fix it for you. But I did learn enough biology in school that I know I have a digestive system. I know I have bones and how they move. You know, if I go to the doctor and I say, hey, like, my foot hurts, and he's like, you pulled a tendon, I don't actually remember the difference between a tendon and a ligament. But it doesn't matter. I know that it's one of those things that connects the bones and muscles. And that's just being an educated human about this body that I'm going to live in my whole life. In the same way, when our kids go to school, they're going to be living with technology their whole life. They're going to have, you know, we have phones in our pocket today. They're connected to the internet. We have algorithms that are running so much of the world that we live in. You know, what school you go to, what job you get, the application for that job, what hours you work, the sourcing for the materials that are coming in, and then the entertainment you watch when you get home, right? This is the world they live in. And so what we try to do is make sure that kids have that foundational understanding of how that works. I want them to feel like, whether or not they go on to go make apps, I want them to understand how apps are made so they feel like they can do it. I want them to know what big data is. I want them to know what AI is. I want them to understand what the internet is and how computers work. And I want them to do that so that when they do have that clothing company, and they see that they're collecting this data, they can make that connection. Even if they're not the one who's going to build that software, I want them to recognize the problems that software can solve, and I want them to understand how they can use technology to solve those problems, to be able to do that innovation that we talked about earlier. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And honestly, it doesn't really sound that controversial. And I think that, early on we said that you're working with 180 countries.
Yes.
And even in Macedonia, as part of the curriculum, like informatics and computer science is there. So I think that the countries are realizing this is what needs to be done. But I think the next question is, how do you really make that effective? Like, how do you really make it work? And what might be getting in the way of it? Like, why are we not seeing that wonderful success yet?
Yeah, I think that's really fascinating. It is non-controversial, right? It's one of those subjects that people want to see happen, right?
Everybody agrees. Yeah.
Everybody
You can
agrees.
ask, I don't know.
Yeah, so we did a study. It turned out that, this was not our study. 9 out of 10 parents want their kids to learn computer science. I'm a mom. I definitely want my kids to learn computer science. How many parents here want their kids to learn this? What do we got here? Yeah, we got some support here, right? And kids love it. Kids, when you offer the courses, they love and who doesn't want to create apps and make things? So then you're like, well, why is it that most schools in the world don't teach this? And actually, the schools here are ahead, right? That it's part of the curriculum. There are two challenges. One, we see schools that don't teach it. And the other part is we see schools that teach it, but don't really know how to teach it. And the biggest blocker that we see is teacher preparation, right? If you think about this, the teachers that are in the schools today, they didn't learn this for the most part when they went to school. And even if they did learn it, it's a fast-moving subject, right? So, they probably didn't learn about AI and machine learning because most people didn't learn about AI and machine learning, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It was invented in the 1960s, but it wasn't in practical use until recently. And so we're asking teachers to teach a subject that they didn't get to learn. And that's a barrier, and that's a real barrier. And so that's been the focus of our work, is to support the schools to teach this new subject.
Yeah, so when we chatted earlier, you mentioned that you have worked with like 100,000 teachers around the world and reached them through different developmental programs.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to learn, like, what is the support they need? Like, what is that can be done to support these teachers and to train them?
Yeah, so we do 3 things to support teachers. The first is we create curriculum. Teachers need support to understand what should they be teaching, how do they teach it, what does success look like, what is the order in which I would teach these concepts. Our curriculum is free and no cost. We're a nonprofit, so we give that away. We also make tools. And that's something that's also important in the classroom, to support the teachers to be able to have learning environments that are designed for teachers, and we make that available as well as an open source product, and it's available around the world. And then the third thing we do is teacher training, and I think that's really important and often underestimated. Teachers need support, they need training, they need workshops to be able to do this. Imagine you're in front of 30 kids who probably know how to use technology better than you. That is scary. That's scary. It's even scarier when they're 11. And so, giving them some support, some confidence, how do you do that? How do you teach those students? And so that's another important piece that I think is critical to solving this.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I think in that, I just want to mention in the direction of like the teacher training, Macedonia 2025 is already involved in one project that helps with that. It's in a collaboration with some other organizations. And I think
awesome.
that by now, yeah, I think it is. And I hope we do more there. Yeah. And I'm sure by now we have convinced you that this is, that this is something that's good, that we should be all doing. And I'm thinking a lot of you might be thinking, like, what should I do? Like, what can I do right now? Should I go home, try this out? Should I teach my kids? What's your suggestion, Alice? What should the audience do right after this talk?
Okay, so
or later?
The research says that the number one thing that you can do for your kid is to tell them they'd be good at it. This is especially true for girls. They're underrepresented in computer science. They're far less likely to have a parent tell them they'd be good at computer science, and it has a huge impact on whether they're willing to study it. So I'd encourage you all to go home, tell your daughter and son that they'd be good at it. And then, if you want to try something, we have this program called the Hour of Code. Nobody's going to learn computer science in an hour, but in 1 hour, you can learn that you can do it. You can build confidence, You can learn that it's fun. You can create your own game or app. This has now been done by 15% of students around the world. And it's available in over 50 languages. It's a great way to get started. And it works for anybody from age 4 to 104, so you can try it right along with your kid. And if they like it, don't stop there. Encourage them to continue to study in school. And if your school does not yet offer computer science or does not offer real computer science classes, talk to the teachers and see if there's a way to support that school to offer higher quality computer science classes.
That sounds great. I mean, this reminds me, I want to share a personal story now because that's something we kind of tried. So my husband Alec, who's sitting here in the audience, he took our daughter, I think she was like 4 at the time. He took her to Google and she tried her first coding class. And then we did a few other coding classes the years after. And guess what? Like 2 summers ago, she came to us asking to spend 3 weeks from the morning till from 7 to 3 at Nintendo at a Girls Make Games camp. And this is in summer. Like, that's the only time you're guaranteed to get sunshine. I mean, Alice knows. Like, if you're in Seattle, you don't want to be locked in the summer.
You don't.
The whole day. And that happened the year after as well. She spent 1 summer at Nintendo, 1 at Microsoft. That worked great. And I know that all of Alice's kids have tried coding as well. And while not all of them may become computer scientists, like her son's been building apps for a couple of years now, and he's
torturing his little sister apparently. So
and they're usable apps, and he's like not even 13. But you're listening to this, and you might be thinking like we're both computer scientists, our husbands are computer scientists, our kids can do this. I think the real question here is like, can somebody who is not with computer science background and maybe doesn't have the teacher support, can they do it as well?
Absolutely. So anybody can learn computer science. That is foundational to what we do. And one of our big efforts has been to try to figure out how to get this access to underrepresented minorities in America, to underrepresented populations around the world, and to really give everybody the opportunity to learn and create. The Hour of Code is a great introduction designed completely for beginners. It has been done by, again, celebrities, all sorts of people all over the world. We've actually had 10 world leaders do the Hour of Code. We've had Barack Obama, we've had Justin Trudeau, we've had David Cameron. Even the Pope has written a line of code. So this is something anyone can do.
I just want to add to that. That number is 10, but this afternoon that number is going to be 11, because this afternoon we're heading to the office of the Macedonian President Stevo Pendarovski, who will also try to do Hour of Code. So I think for being brave, we should just give him a round of applause right now for trying it out. And I think we want to wrap up with that. So I want to thank you, Alice. This was really a great conversation. And
we have time for questions now?
I just want to...
yeah, we have 10 minutes for questions now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Minutes for questions. So anybody in the crowd that has a question for our panelists, please raise your hand. We've got microphones in the back being ready to pass around.
Got one in the front.
Yeah, there's one.
Thank you for the excellent speech. And you mentioned of age 4. What about from 2 and on?
From 2? Age 2?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
I have something.
Boys.
I have something. So
Katya has something for age 2.
age 3. We started actually at age 3. There was a game that's a board game, so there's no computer in front of you. It was called Turtle Robots, and actually my nephew Marco was just playing it the other day. Like, I brought it here for him. It's just a board game, and you kind of teach the kids how to make the turtle get to the prize, but they have to program it with little cards ahead of time, and then you execute it for them, so they understand how the logic works. Like, there is no technology, it's really a board game, but the kids get it so quickly, and they start using the language, because it has like, you start simple, and then you call out a bug, because you're like, oh my god, that's a bug, and then they get it, and then you start making these little routines that you save and repeat. So they get the concepts even though they're not really in front of the computer. But then it's not foreign. You know, once they get on, they're like, okay, I get this. This is just one of these other things. Again, back to the I know what a bone is, I know what a nose is, I know what a bug is.
Yeah, but
And actually, that one's really interesting. I get this question a lot, right? What do you teach kindergartners, like 6-year-olds, about computer science? At that age, what you're learning is computational thinking, right? It doesn't matter what language you're learning. You could learn JavaScript. It'll be out by the time they graduate. Nobody's going to be using this language or that language. You teach an approach to problem solving. And this is different from a lot of what's taught in schools. So some people say, oh, okay, computer science, it sounds like science. It's not, right? Science is about learning how the world works. And a lot of what school does is they give you a problem and there's a right answer and a wrong answer, right? Here's a math problem, let's solve it. Or here's a science experiment we're going to do, and you're going to write a hypothesis, you're going to test it one time, and you're going to write what happened. So it's a one-time thing and it's done. Engineering is about an iterative process where you're building something, you test it, it has bugs, it should have bugs. You've succeeded if it has bugs, right? You find those, you iterate and you make it better. You iterate and you make it better. It's a different approach to solving problems in school than a lot of what school teaches. And what we found is that approach to problem solving, which is core to computer science, you can start that very young. You can teach that a bug is not a bad thing, it's a good thing. We actually have a storybook that we do with the first graders where they're just reading a story where there are bugs and they've got to go find the bugs, and we're trying to make them feel good about that. Like, you spotted a bug. And that's a positive thing, and making them feel good about that. There's research showing that normalizing failure, making that a normal part of the engineering process and feeling good about failure is really key to success at something like engineering. It is also something that women are less likely to have than men. And by normalizing failure as part of the educational system, women are they have better attitudes toward computer science, they go further and they're more successful at it. So this is the kind of thing that we can start even very, very young, is teaching about a different way of thinking about problem solving. Yeah.
So I'm sure there's lots of families, people that have families in this room, and there's a lot of company owners in this room. How do people in Macedonia get set up with code.org to use it?
It's free. You just go to code.org. That's all you have to do. Go ahead. Thanks. Good question, though. I like that.
So, you can just go to the site, and there's that hour program, and you can download it, and you can have your kids do it?
Actually, we don't download it, and that was part of making it accessible. We were trying to limit the number of barriers for teachers to be able to teach this, and we found that one of the barriers was just having to download something and install something on all of the computers was hard. So we just made it all available as a website, and if you Google Hour of Code, that's a great place to get started. There are options from us, as well as we've worked with over 200 companies that are all producing computer science curriculum. There are options that work on every single device. There are options that you can download and work offline or online. None of them require a sign-in. You just try it out. That's all you have to do. Yeah, thanks for queuing me up with a good question.
I can just add to that, as we were speaking about this session and sending the info to Nikita, I think she tried it as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fortunately, I have a daughter that does coding, 13 years old, so yeah, we did it.
Yeah.
Great, and thank you. It's free of charge resources.
Yeah.
Helpful.
I think there's a question in the back there.
Hello, my name is Igor. I am familiar with the code.org, and I want to know two things. First is, you mentioned that Macedonia 2025 have some initiative about supporting projects in terms of education in ICT. There are some initiatives in Macedonia that go for coding for kids, especially for Scratch as a platform, and this is focused mainly on the young people. So I would like to know more about what Macedonia 2025 is doing, like supporting initiatives. And the second thing towards Alice, I share the opinion that women should be more involved in the ICT industry. My daughter has 16 years, and she is more into digital art, creating, and she was a part of this global game jam production of. It's an international event that goes once per year, and I try to support her during the time. So I think, in essence, it is lacking the support of society towards girls to approach the ICT sector. So I think that kind of activities should be more and more into that. And I just want to mention, my wife has a company. It's called edufront.mk, and she started education for small children based on Scratch and the Harvard's curriculum for education.
That's amazing. I love it.
Great question.
Yeah. I love Scratch. Scratch is fantastic, and Scratch is actually, there are 2 great hour of code activities on Scratch, which is a great way to get started. I would say, you know, for women, I do think that's a challenge. It's a challenge we see around the world, and starting with education and starting in part of primary and secondary school is a great way to engage women. We, at Code.org, in America, right now, we see that only less than a fifth of students graduating from university are female in computer science. So there's a real gender gap there, and we're missing out on a huge percentage of our workforce and people who could be a part of this.
I see that at the workplace as well. I mean, oftentimes I'm the only woman in the room.
Yeah.
Typical thing.
But I have positive news here. So we're only 6 years old as an organization. And we have seen, you know, we have about 40% of schools in America are using our technology, and in America we see that the percentage of women in our courses is almost 50%. And so, you know, we're not, you know, there's other work that needs to happen. This won't solve the problem by itself. There's work that needs to happen in technology. There's work that needs to happen in hiring and retention and how companies do this. But it's a critical component is bringing both women and men into, you know, with these skills so that they can join the conversation and be a part of it. I love that your wife is doing something with Scratch with kids, as young kids. That's fantastic. And I, you know, if you want to talk about Macedonia 2025.
Yeah, go briefly, yes.
Yeah.
So Macedonia 2025, like even like before this conversation, was involved in a smaller project that's about training teachers. And with this, we want to bring more the awareness of this, because we feel that the way we talk about, again, like when we talk about economic development, we talk a lot about getting into the EU. We talk about a lot of things that are related to what's outside. And this is really talking about what can we do inside that can really make a big difference and can create prosperity. So I think that our first step is just really talking about this. And obviously in the future, we want to do more. We want to engage more.
Yeah, and I love that you guys are doing teacher training as the effort, because I feel like that's what we see as the critical component that schools need.
Yeah. Yes, I think we have to wrap up then.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. One last round of applause for the group. Thank you.
Thank you.
And before we invite our next panel up, we actually have a special video that's being played by the Global Strategy and Chief Operating Officer from Cognizant. He filmed this 10-minute video specifically for this crowd, so I hope you enjoy learning what Cognizant's point of view is on I think Kurt's going to explain the business and all the things they're doing there. So here's the video.
Thank you. Thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to join you for the Macedonia 2025 Summit this year. I'm delighted that Anna and Nikki have been kind enough to provide a forum to address you, even virtually. The last time I was with you together was in 2016 summit. I was with Mike Zafirowski, active member of your board, Chris Gowan from Motorola Days, Sandy Ogg, and other executives, and we were really focused on how the skills of the future can allow and provide Macedonia the roadmap forward. And I'm delighted to be here at the moment to give an update on some of the activities in progress since then. When we were together in 2016, I was able to provide a brief snapshot of Cognizant as a company. Since then, since we were last together, we have added 66,000 employees. We now have over 288,000 people in our family. We were able to, in that window, increase the amount of business that we get from digital business, increase our footprint outside of the United States into the rest of the world. We achieved a Fortune 193 ranking, and I think very importantly to us, and what we're proud about, is the fact that we celebrated our 25th birthday last February. So 25 years since we started. We're now a $17 billion organization around the world with 288,000 employees. And I think most significantly, recently we were able to proclaim that we now have over 100,000 females as part of our population. So we think that's pretty exciting news, and it sets us well as we look forward in being relevant in the marketplace, relevant to our employees, and relative to our clients. Let me talk a little bit quickly about how we've seen the evolution of the industry. This is Industry 4.0. The first was the invention of the loom. The second was the invention of the steam engine. The third, the invention of the assembly line. And now it's the invention of the systems of intelligence. And that involves artificial intelligence, algorithms, bots, the ability to have systems of record on an ongoing basis. And that's become a very hot topic. A little while ago, I lectured at World Economic Forum and held a panel around this as a subject, the workforce of the future, to help supply that. As you may have seen, of the 4 main topics this year at Davos, the idea of technology and society was one of the main topics. They even said online is becoming more contagious and dangerous than cigarettes for young people. So it's become a very hot topic, and one that we both can learn from, but also we can take advantage of. We've done a lot of research about this notion of jobs in the future, and we published several books and white papers about that. And over the next several years, the expectation is we'll see a big shift in the way that jobs are looked at. We see a decline of as much as 12% of today's workforce in North America, for example, and that's 19 million people. Things like testing, things like X-ray analysis, where manual errors are 20%, machine errors are 2%. Which would you rather have? Tax preparation, legal preparation, etc. So those are becoming more automated. On the flip side, new jobs, we estimated about 13%, 21 million. Things like artificial intelligence, customer intimacy, the ability to do mobilized banking and other forms of analytics that are going up. And about 75% in the middle, we believe in most cases technology and these latest advances will actually help humans and enhance their lives and how they're effective today. So we see this as a challenge for many institutions and organizations: labor, education, government, and economics. And today's record unemployment is compounding the problem. In the U.S., for example, we have all-time low at 3.8%. Yet within the technology sector, it's less than 1.4%. You look at the most coveted jobs on Glassdoor: data engineer, DevOps engineer, software engineer, data scientists. There are 64,000 openings alone on Glassdoor in those areas. And you look at the diversity situation. The U.S. has over 56% female students in colleges, and yet only 20% female job penetration in technology companies. So all of this contributes to this notion of a war for talent. And how does that provide an opportunity for Macedonia to take advantage of it in many ways? As we look at the war on talent, there are a few components that come to forefront. One is STEM education. That's become very, very powerful on a worldwide basis. Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And that's gaining great popularity. There are programs like Girls That Code as an example. In fact, you might have seen last week in the Forbes magazine, they had a competition of over 2,300 folks around STEM innovation, 30 finalists, and the top 5 winners, all 5 winners were female. And that brings to a second piece. I mentioned earlier the majority of college graduates are female, and yet very small penetration in the technology side. That's a key area for opportunity that Macedonia can think about and is thinking about. And related a little bit to that is the fact that technology jobs in the digital age are now becoming much more addressable with varying backgrounds and education certifications. For example, we've been drawing on veterans, vocational schools, 2-year degrees for certain technology jobs around infrastructure support, help desk, areas like that. In terms of degrees, while the engineering degree is first and foremost a foundation, we are finding that with artificial intelligence, algorithms, customer interactive interfaces, that these actually benefit from people with other kinds of degrees than engineering, because it involves pattern recognition. It involves the ability to connect the dots in different ways. It involves the ability to think as a client would think when they go together. And in fact, even in things like customer interfaces, we're now seeing the ability to use artists to help with that and make that a more seamless approach. So because the technology jobs are changing, we now have access to a much broader talent pool than just the engineering community that we did in the past. And I think that will provide a great set of flexibility along with the ability to get certifications for certain products. So for Salesforce.com, for Adobe and others, a lot of those are online certifications. Some of those are only 60 to 90 days and can be taken remotely. So that whole combination should help in the overall supply equation. Another category for consideration is location. More and more of the technology jobs can be done remotely or in regional centers. In Cognizant, we have over 36 regional centers around the world, with more than a dozen and a half in Europe. And those are often in places because of client requirements and or skill availability. For example, we have a center in Vilnius, Lithuania that I've been to. We have more than 1,000 people. Interestingly, 70% are female, and they're supporting 2 Nordic clients from that center. We have a center in Budapest that is offering help desk support and other online support. We just acquired a company called SoftVision, which has its main development team in Romania of several thousand people. So it's becoming more and more possible to have remote locations where the work can actually be done. Now, our people would say one of the things to think about is to increase language skills. So, for example, any of your folks that also learn German, that also learn other ones of the languages that could allow them to work remote in some of those places, may be an option to consider in expanding the footprint and the workplace. Also, more and more work can be done remotely. Because of the way that the programming works, it doesn't always require co-location. Sometimes co-location is helpful, especially agile development and some of the other techniques, but more and more it's possible to have remote workforces possible. And that really could be important in how you're able to not only teach the next generation, but keep them in the country and keep them active, yet part of the broader network that they can operate within. And the third area could be partnering, strategic partnering with industry leaders in the marketplace. For example, in Barcelona, we've developed a hub for Salesforce.com and Adobe skills. And we've created that as a center of excellence. It's a go-to place for those folks. They have a community, a familiarity in how they operate, and it's a strategic relationship with Salesforce.com and Adobe. In many of these areas, they are looking for footprint, access to technical skills, and prepared to partner, especially if it could be with a client in the country. And that would be another form of partnering, is working with potential clients in your country and become their hub, especially if they're leveraging any of these software solution efforts or platform efforts. And I know that's on the agenda as well. So I think those help represent some of the opportunities that the Macedonia team is currently thinking about. I know you have a very exciting panel about ready to kick off, and it would be, I think, directionally consistent with the industry, and in many cases could give Macedonia a head start in a few of those areas. So with that, I very much wish you a fantastic conference. I know there'll be a lot of good engagement, and we'll look forward to continuing an open dialogue in how you chart your path forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kurt. I'd like to welcome up our next panel, so come on stage real quick. I think this next session is going to be a perfect follow-up to the conversations we had both this morning and obviously the awesome one-on-one that we had a little bit ago. The topic of the panel is envisioning the future of jobs and skills, and it's going to be led by Emil Kristinovsky, who's the National Coordinator at International Labor Organization. Emil?
So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the last panel before the lunch. I hope it will be interesting enough to keep your attention. In the first two panels of today, you heard and you set the stage, how the world operates in terms of economy, in terms of politics. Then we had a perfect introduction of the topics of the future of work. And actually in this panel we'll focus on the new forces which are transforming the world of work. And we'll focus and discuss the major challenges and also the opportunities that this future will bring. Of course, none of us know exactly what will happen, so this is the opinion of our panelists, how they envisage the future of jobs and how they envisage the future of skills. So first, I will introduce the panelists in this panel. I have Daniela Zampini, which is the Employment and Skills Specialist in the International Labor Organization. Then I have Aneta Antova-Pesheva, President of the Macedonian Chamber of Information and Communication Technologies, and also Honorary Consul of Canada. I also have with us Granit Almok Barkat, which is an expert on change in education and leadership, and Victor Mizo, whom I know for a long time, and who is currently the Managing Director of Coastal Macedonia, part of the German family-owned Coastal Group. So we will start this panel by addressing the question which is how will the new technologies change the nature of jobs in different occupations and different levels? What will be the defining priorities of the new jobs? And most importantly, will they be perceived as quality jobs? Which jobs and occupations are at risk? At the same time, what are the new potential sources of job creation? So I would like to start first with Daniela and about her opinion about this issue.
Yes. Thank you, because 5 minutes is ample time to tackle a very simple question like the one that you put to us. Let's say that I will share with you my personal views when I need to be a bit unpleasant and controversial, but to some extent I will give you also a little bit of a corporate view, if you allow me to say so, coming from the International Labour Organization. And I start from the end. I start from the conclusions. Basically, 2.5 years of work at the ILO, where we brought together what we call the Global Commission on the Future of Work. There were, I will use now the new expression I've learned today. It's a think and do foundation. We brought together academia, we brought together politicians, Nobel Prize winners, and we asked them what is the future of work. And the conclusion there, and if there's one message for me it's important to pass across today, is this one: the future of work is what we shape it to be. So there is a lot of responsibility on us, and not just on us as people sitting in this room with higher education, CEOs, politicians. I think that one of the jobs for Macedonia 2025, for instance, is to bring this discussion a little bit out there. Because it's not, the future of work is not only, if you look at technology, it's not only what is technically feasible to do. I think we have to give a little bit of consideration, and I think the CEOs in the room will agree with me, to what is economically viable, because it's not always economically viable to replace people with artificial intelligence or algorithms or some of the other tools that technology makes available to us, and it has to be socially acceptable as well. And I would like to emphasize that. I was sitting just before next to a colleague, I think their business is retirement homes, and I was thinking, yeah, that's a typical case where the human interaction is a lot more important than the technical feasibility and the economic viability, right? When we are in our older age, we wouldn't want to be dealing with artificial intelligence or with a nice screen where we order an extra dessert. If you want me to take the example that was mentioned by the previous panel, I think we would like to be treated by human beings with empathy and with the adequate set of skills to deal with our specific individual problems. So for me, there are not only the aspects of technology there and what is feasible, economic viability, social acceptability are also equally important. And if I have one more point that I could bring across during this first intervention is that it's true, we focus a lot on technology, but at the ILO we are trying to look at all the mega trends that are shaping the future of work. So technology is an important one. There is climate change. I think we will hear a little bit more about this tomorrow. And I think the demographic changes and globalizations are all contributing to shaping what we are doing in terms of the future of work and how we envision and we want to shape it to be. So not just look at technology and digitalization in isolation, let's look at the mega trends together. And I would like to maybe add, now it's me personally speaking, just to be a little bit provocative, standing as the last thing between you and lunch. I think we talked before about autonomous driving of cars and trucks. And again, I go back to the point of socially acceptable. If, as anticipated, fully, completely autonomous driving of cars and trucks will come into force, let's say in the next decade, every country, every single country on the planet will have to add 13 percentage points to the unemployment rate. Is that socially acceptable? Do you know any government that will risk elections? To be very pragmatic on this single point. So yes, it's technically feasible. We will hear about this. Is it economically viable and socially acceptable?
Thank you, Daniela. That's an interesting point. But let's hear from the perspective of the companies in Macedonia.
Yes,
Let's hear from Aneta how this increased digitalization, automation is expected to affect the quality and the quantity of jobs, yes, and whether this, what is happening now in the world, these changes are actually opportunity for developing countries like Macedonia to catch up with the more advanced and developed countries.
First, I want to thank you that I'm part of this event, of organizers, and especially Nikica, that I'm part of this panel. You know, I think that Macedonia is not far away from the world in IT sector. IT sector is one of the most developed in Macedonia, and from the number of the students who are study in our university, for example, Finki, it's, this year there are 1,080 students. Maybe 2,000 are studying, you know, in IT sector, which means, which is very good number. But if I am asked to make some predictions, what is going to happen, you know, in the future, this is not a very easy task. But maybe I think, this is my meaning, that the most asked jobs are going to be engineers in all categories. This is the first profession. Second are going to be the doctors who are going to take care about the engineers. And third one are going to be cooks who are going to take care to be well fed. This is what I think. But maybe I'm obsessed from my profession and the people around me. But there are, and we have to be aware that some professions are going to die. This is, are going to disappear. And what you said, I said many panelists, you know, mentioned some of these professions. But I read one study from Oxford University. It was made 2016, which said that I think 47 47 of current jobs will disappear in 20 years. That is because all the processes are going to be automated. And the drivers are on the first place because everybody, you know, this self-drive, you know, even bus drivers, you know, truck drivers, even delivery, Uber drivers, you know, everything is going to be automated. For example, in USA, there is 15.5 million trucks on the road. With the trucking industry employed 14 million people, out of which 10 million are drivers. Those people would be pushed out first because of new drive trucks. You know, I was panelist 3 days ago, also on some forum, and one gentleman there, he said, you know, that not only IT engineers are leaving the country, but also drivers are leaving the country from Macedonia, because it was labor lost in Macedonia, the title. And I said to him, I am sure that the drivers are coming back in Macedonia from USA because in USA the trucks are going to drive by themselves, but I'm not sure that engineers are going to come back. This is what, you know, this is going to be a big problem in this field. Also farmers, somebody mentioned also here, I think that all we from IT sector, we are talking about the same things. You know, their farms, you know, they cultivate by the, you know, watered by automated intelligent systems, running by satellites and everything. And also on global level, only less than 10 companies are, you know, they are controlling the food industry. Like Nestle, PepsiCo, Coca-Cola, and Unilever and others. And a very painful thing, publishers and printers are going to disappear, not disappear, but in another form. Like internet is coming, you know, nobody is buying newspapers, real newspapers, but you can see all the news on your phone every time you want. Cashier, somebody, also Alice mentioned that. For example, in Amazon, there is a project Amazon Co where there is zero human in this project. Zero humans are involved. Travel agencies also. Nobody, I think, here in this room booked through travel agency their flights. You know, and you know, everybody we can do from our home. Or I bought last year this OK Google, and you can tell to your OK Google, book my flight. You can do even that. This is frightening, but this is what is happening. And all the things, manufacturer workers also are going to. They were, you know. They were even, that was a problem even 200 years ago, but you can imagine what is going to happen when artificial intelligence and machine learning is going to be in power. And all of this is that, you know, that artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, and data analysis are going to be the most important professions in the future, which is going to be in every industry, in every field of other industries.
Thank you, Aneta. So what we can get from the first two panelists is that for those of us who have small children, don't send them to become drivers. So that job will not exist in the future. Anyway, a lot of jobs will be destroyed, but a lot of new jobs and their opportunities will be created. And here with us we have Granit, which is an expert in change of education, in the change of leadership. I guess the leadership skills will be still required in the future. And what is your opinion? What will be the defining priorities of these new jobs and which jobs and occupation will be at risk, and what is the aspect of quality of these jobs from your perspective?
Thank you. Probably most of us will live until the age of 90. My grandparents lived until the age of 70. And our children probably will live until 100 years from now. But when we are waking up in the morning, the question for me is not to make a living, to earn a living, like my parents did. They may earn a living, and they had, the sense of going to work, going to do my job, and then to fulfill my life at the afternoon or on weekends. We have to take into account that the world has changed. The youngest, and even us, we would like to wake up in the morning to create a meaningful life. All of us would like to have a personal seal, signature, to do an act of leadership, to change something in society, to know that I've been here and have changed something in our life. When we are speaking, and I'm listening to you all, and I'm hearing a little bit the fear about what will be, what is the unknown, how things will change, and it reminds me, my grandparents were afraid what will be, and I'm looking and observing them, and I see that even today, even though we're not doing the same thing that they did, I'm not doing anymore the laundry, I'm not cooking anymore, I'm going to the supermarket, and yet I don't have time. Yet I'm very, very busy. And things will change. And if you ask me, I would rather, instead of calling that a revolution, I would say that let's take it a step by step. This is not a revolution if we enable it to see that as a step by step, and understanding and giving opportunity to think in what we call leadership, move from distance, and giving each one of us a voice and meaning to in life. And this is what we need to train our people, to do this change of paradigm, understanding that probably doctors will have a different job description. Yes. They will probably have something else that might be very useful for all of us to create meaning to our life. I won't go to the doctor when I'm sick, probably. Thanks to the new opportunities, I will think with him when I'm young. What should be my diet? What should be my sport training? I will see him as my partner, as a case manager, to live the way I need to live my life, to fulfill them. And instead of thinking about, do I need to make an x-ray, as you mentioned it, probably it will all be gone. But I won't lose him. I will have a different kind of job description that we need to educate people, to be creative, to be able to cope, to be able to think, how do I prevent? If I know now that I could be in a risk of a heart attack, take into account not only measuring my heartbeat, I can take the understanding the society that I'm living at, the genetic, the pollution around me, all the things would be, like, we are all, I'm coming from Israel, we are very familiar about our intelligence. But this morning I read the newspaper that one of the intelligence they work and calculated the risk for raising tumors, breast tumors, and they called a woman and insisted with her that she would go to do a test, and found out that she had already a tumor. Those intelligence forces, those people, will using the same skill that we know today in a different way. Going to the doctor will be a partnership. Going to the teacher, going to the gym, meet my coach, will be another role. So while I'm looking at the future, first of all, I'm wishing it, I'm welcoming, because it will give us a lot of understanding and ability to think in terms of who am I, what I'm doing here, what I want to achieve in my life. And those skills that we all describe will serve this mission, I assume, the best way. So if you'll ask me, this will be the best basic skills to start with the next generation.
Thank you, Granit. I really like your positive note, and I really like your belief in the transformative power of our societies. So I really like that, and I hope that we will have this transformative power to transfer, also to transform our Macedonian society here, and then make it a better society.
Between revolution and evolution, that's what I would say.
And also between, yes, your evolution point of view. But let's go back to Macedonia and let's see in reality what a director of a Macedonian, of a foreign-owned company operating in Macedonia is thinking about the future of jobs in their sector, or what are the challenges and what are the opportunities also. Victor?
Yep. Thank you. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll be having automated driving anytime soon in Macedonia. First, I think we need to improve our infrastructure, roads, and everything else before we get there. So US, Canada, Germany will be facing that problem much sooner than we will. Even though we, myself and a few other companies that are here already producing in Macedonia, will be part of the evolution and the revolution, making those components and those products that will lead to that autonomous driving. But I think in our case, what we have to see more in the local and regional aspect is really usually many companies, especially in the automotive industry, they were always moving to find, as probably the most mobile industry in the world, always looking for the right type of labor in terms of skills, in terms of availability, and cost effectiveness. I'm not talking about the cheapest labor, but the right mix in terms of best cost location, because you do not always have to go next to your customer. In our case, we don't only produce for customers in Europe, we produce components for Tesla, we produce which is assembled in California, we produce components that is for Mini that is assembled in China, but it is the most cost competitive location at the moment from our global footprint here. So we have to move from this labor intensive to more capital intensive industries. So whether we call it Industry 4.0, whether we call it automation, robotics, algorithms, machine learning, it's not going to be all the latest technologies in the Western Balkans. We have to learn more and more about semi-automated and maybe fully automated processes, and how to find the right skills for people to actually operate, program, and maintain that equipment. That is the biggest problem that we're facing. Really to find the skill set and finding the people, because it's not only about education, but it's also about experience, in order to have people working in those industries. And we as a country, we almost, I don't want to say we squandered 30 years, but probably we squandered about 20 years since the breakup of Yugoslavia. It was a process of deindustrialization. Very little investment in industry, in economic development. People in the general region here thought about too many other things in the 90s than what we should have been thinking about, like the rest of Eastern Europe. So we have to even catch up to our peers, which are just 1,000 kilometers away from us. You know, if you look at Hungary, if you look at Czech Republic, Slovakia, they are unfortunately in manufacturing light years ahead of us, and we have to catch up. But we also have to create those right type of skills, and it's not about losing certain jobs, but creating new ones and creating workforce through training, through proper education, in order to be able to catch up to the region. So in our case, it's about finding people that can maintain, let's say, complex equipment. And finding those type of people, it is not easy at all. And it is not a problem of our country only. It's a general problem. I think that problem persists even in the Western world. But we have to know that we're not going to take away jobs from certain parts of the world unless we have the right skills here. So what type of jobs we will lose? I guess in our case, in Ohrid, you know what will happen? Because if we offer better jobs, better paying jobs, more stable jobs, we'll run out of waiters. To be honest, I've taken all the waiters from all the restaurants around the lake because people want to work for me. They don't want to work there. And I haven't had problems with the waiters and coffee barn owners. Why are you taking all our people? I said, where? But those people are going to be your customer throughout the year, not only in 2 months during the summer. So it's the chicken and the egg. Is this more important for economic development in the country? Maybe we'll find people that will be waiters who are, let's say, third or fourth year in high school, or maybe, I don't know, university students who want to do a summer internship. Because we also have problems when we talk to universities. Everybody wants to do work and travel in the US rather than doing a summer internship in engineering here. Or many people want to work in McDonald's in Germany because they will make more money working for 3 months in McDonald's in Germany than doing a proper summer internship in Macedonia. I'm even talking people from third-year engineering, whether they're at Finke, whether they're electrical or mechanical engineering students, they would rather go flick burgers in McDonald's in somewhere northern Germany. I cannot understand this, but unfortunately that is the case. That's what we're facing, and it's really about how are we going to motivate those people to be the new workforce that will help in the economic development of the country.
Yeah. Thank you, Victor. That's really a question because the issue of this transition from this kind of jobs to new kind of jobs, from these skills to another skill, is a question that, of course, is very important to be answered. And of course, the world is moving with different speeds, so we cannot speak about the different countries going in the same. You mentioned the example of other peers, which are more advanced with us. I will go back again to Nikita and what she said, that we need to be faster than the others in order to catch up. So hopefully we'll become faster as a country and catch up at least with our peers the first time. But I will, Daniela wants to add something more about this.
I actually want to get back on one point, because it's been haunting me since the previous panels, which is the issue of how we're using the data to say how many jobs will be destroyed and how many jobs will be created. We heard in the previous panel about the PricewaterhouseCoopers, 47%, no, I think it was more than 50% in the US. You cited the Oxford studies. I have a list of about 15 different studies, like from Asia, they say 56%. The OECD for Europe says that less than 9% will be destroyed by automation, 9% of jobs will be destroyed by automation. So my conclusion is actually that nobody knows. Nobody knows. As ILO, I can tell you, nobody knows really. And that's the thing where it becomes important that we table a dialogue, I think, even at a more decentralized level than country level, because people in our communities, they do not experience global trends. They do not experience digitalization, automation, climate change. What people experience in their communities every day is that, to date, we still have worldwide about 30 million people who died every year because of accidents at the workplace. We have 1/3 of the workforce who still work in informal employment. We're talking about 2 billion of people in informal employment. This is what people experience every day in their communities. So when we talk about these global trends, how many jobs will be destroyed and created, we have to be truthful to ourselves and say, well, we don't really know. What we can do and what we can engage on is in a productive dialogue. It was mentioned before, labor, government, companies, enterprises, and so on, and try to work it out for ourselves what it means today in Strumica, in Bitola, or whatever, what it means in practical terms for the communities that, they do not experience artificial intelligence and algorithm, but experience informality and death at the workplace.
Thank you, Daniela. And then we come back to the issue of the current situation that we are facing at the moment. We heard the previous speaker addressing us through the video that was played to us, saying, United States are record low levels of unemployment, but we're living in Macedonia, which has one of the highest levels of unemployment. And what is even more worrisome, of course, is the low level of employment, one of the lowest in Europe. And then in light of that, and in light of these changes which are coming, how, Daniela, from your perspective and from the perspective of the ILO, can full employment be achieved in the context of the current future technological changes? What policies do we have to do nationally but also globally in order to be helpful, in order to realize the full potential for job creation?
Yes. Well, the myth of full employment is, of course, something that for 100 years now has been haunting us, because we do believe that it's an important policy target for countries to set. What we at the ILO, we like to qualify it and say this to be full, productive, and freely chosen employment for all. And that's an important topic, and maybe I will come back to it later. When I say for all, that's crucial. And it goes into the issue of why people are migrating and so on and so forth. Now, I mentioned before the report of the Global Commission on the Future of Work. And they came up with a series of policy options, that they actually 10 policy options that countries would need to adopt. I don't want to go through all of them, but I think the key message is that when confronted with the challenges of digitalization, for instance, the policy agenda should be more human-centered. If you look at what all the statements of the commissioners and the Global Commission on the Future of Work have come to at the end of 3 years of gathering and learning and exchange has been that we need a more human-centered agenda. Some of the practical options, we are already aware of what they are. Lifelong learning, I think it has been mentioned already a couple of times during the works today, but it should be universal. Everyone should have access to lifelong learning, regardless of whether you are a medical doctor or whether you are a farmer, a medical doctor in Macedonia or a farmer in France. I'm not saying that it applies only at the country level, depending on how the professional standing is being perceived. The other options that were put forward were a lot concerned with topics that sometimes are a little bit controversial. I don't know whether the colleagues from the World Bank and the IMF are still in the room, but sometimes we don't agree between the ILO and the World Bank IMF on, for instance, on the importance of the investment in social protection for all, and how this links with the issue that every one of us, every single individual of us would like to have some form of what we call a labor guarantee, meaning that throughout our life, throughout the many transitions that we face throughout our life, we would like to be sure that we are not exploited at work, that we have access to insurance, medical health, that we have access to learning and training, and that when we finish our career in the professional work, we can still live a decent life and have access to the amenities that we think we have earned after working so hard. So these are some of the policy options that were put forward. And the main message remains this one, that every policy option has to be designed with the human being at the center of it. So digitalization is facing us, artificial intelligence is out there. Let's put even more the human being at the center of our conversations.
Thank you, Daniela. That's really, of course, natural and noble to put us humans in the center of future policies. But let's hear from the perspective of the companies and in Macedonia. What kind of policies, what kind of cooperation do you need support from the government in order to tackle this transition that we were mentioning previously, the transition from one kind of a job to a new kind of a job, one set of skills to new skills? I guess that is very expensive, and you need the support actually from the national policies. So let's hear from first from the national counterparts and then from Granite. Okay, Aneta, you can.
Yeah, me. Okay. I can tell you that we don't have to be afraid from new technologies, because maybe some professions are going to die, but some new are going to be born. What we are doing now in Macedonia, especially we are pushing a lot, me like a president and our managing board in MASIT, is that we are working on the requalification of the people from other professions. And we are not doing this with the government, because you mentioned that the government has to help us. No, we are doing this with Embassy of Great Britain, also Swiss embassies helping us,
but
USAID.
These are other governments, so
yes,
it's again government.
USAID, no, like a project. So we are working this like a project. We'll apply on that. And, you know, 3 courses till now we have in these 2 years. And it's unbelievable that 70% of the people find work after that. They were not engineers. You know, I was joking before that only artificial intelligence, machine learning engineers and data analysts are going to be in power, but it's not like that, you know. We have to put some digital skills for the people who are not engineers. And this is going to be very useful in other industries. Not you have by default to be engineer, you know, to work something, but there will be some new. And also I think that with higher technology, at least people are going to live longer. Always it happens that new technologies, you're in that field, and maybe, you know, like, you know, in fairy tales, that we are going to have more time for social life. We are going to work only 3 days in the week. We are going to work in that 3 days, 4 hours only. It's not everything, you know, black situation. You know, always new industries come with fear from the workers, from everybody, but we have to be positive, to have positive view. I want to reply to Victor because we have this experience. I have also I own IT company, one of the oldest one. I can tell you that the engineers here, they are not very, how to say, happy with till now how the society treated them. You know, we were something like all my life. They treat us that we are something like plumbers. You know, you have a broken tap and then you call somebody. We have to be and to get the position. Even that is what I'm fighting in Macedonia. To be on high, we have to be the highest respect industry because our time is coming. You know, all the industries. If there is no IT sector, I'm not telling. Macedonia is far away from this robotics, artificial, but normal IT. Software engineers, and there will be no industry in Macedonia. And I think that this is the most important thing, what all of people in our country have to know. That is why we have to put on higher level understanding that they are the first-rate intellectuals and that we have to fight for them. And we don't, I think that they can work even from here, for foreign countries, and this is growing industry. About the numbers, I want to tell you about the numbers. For example, in Europe, women in IT technologies is around 70%. In Netherlands, it's around 5–6% women in IT technologies. In Macedonia, we are almost 38%, which shows that we are very, very far from Europe. That is one thing that we can be very proud of, that we are. Also, you know, that we are pushing our kids to go in IT sector, and this is tremendous number what we have students now. Our students from our universities, from ICT sector, when they go abroad, most of you know my friends here who are in America or Canada, you know, they are the best one. Every company can employ them, and this is the way how I think, and I think that everybody, we have to be, you know, on this track. And also for the professions, not all professions are going to die. You know, there are many professions who are going to live. You know, psychologists, doctors, veterinarians. You know, also this for all the people care. You know, personal care. This is not machine is not going to be useful in these fields.
Of course, thank you, Annette. Of course, we will not have a future without jobs. So there will be jobs, but different kind of jobs.
Different kind of jobs, yes.
And you're coming really from a very advanced sector. Of course, your messages. Hopefully, if there are people from the government here about the center of the policy of the government to be IT sector, then that's a message I think they will take on board. But let's before we come back to you again. Let's go to Victor and
Can I say only one thing? You know, yes, with the government, we were very pleased because it was our asking, you know, to make flat taxes, because in Macedonia, The highest income has IT engineers. Average in Macedonia of IT engineer is around 1,500 euros, which is highest possible level, and this progressive tax was very attacking our sector. And I'm always saying to my employees and the engineers that, 2,000 euros in Macedonia are much more than 4,000 in Germany, because you have family here and you have all, around you, schools, kindergartens, yes.
Thank you, Neta. Let's hear from another sector, from the perspective of the automotive parts industry and the challenges that you're facing.
It's really about mindset change and about the mentality which exists here in the region. Many people still think of manufacturing that it's about exploitation of the workers. Many people perceive that this is 1850 Manchester, or that this is some type of, I would say, heavy steel industry which is very dirty. And people would, I think in Macedonia, in the whole region, people would like to go to work in the public administration instead of working in manufacturing, even though I can attest that not only Costal, but quite a few of the foreign advanced companies that are in Macedonia in the manufacturing sector, some of them are even cleaner than food production or pharmaceutical industries. So this mindset has to change in terms of what we offer, and that what we offer really it's a career progression based on merit, based on capability, that these people can advance regardless of who they know, whether they are part of a political party or they have any other type of connections. So that unfortunately in this region is still an ideological problem. What also we have a problem is with labor mobility, and I'm only talking local labor mobility. Many people that are from Skopje, for them it's like, wow, I have to go to a town which is 2 hours away. They're thinking that this is going to the moon and back on a daily basis. I mean, this is, no, but it's not only about the infrastructure, it's not very difficult. We're not talking commuting from New York to LA. We're talking 2 hours away, moving away. I'm not expecting that everybody here would have the American mentality when they're 18, they'll be kicked out of their home or they'll live on their own and see their parents at Thanksgiving or Christmas. No, but here people want to live in the same house where their grandparents lived. And they think also their grandchildren will have to live there as well. It's really about labor mobility. Go and move to a place that gets you a job, that provides you opportunity to grow, to work, and to actually develop yourself. And I'm not talking across a border. I'm talking within the country itself. And that's not very easy in order to persuade the people to move outside of their hometown. But we also have this idea of what does work mean. Working for a German company, if we start at 8:30 in the morning, it does not mean that you clock in at 8:29 and 47 seconds, but that means at 8:30 your computer is turned on and you actually start working. Not that you come in just 3 seconds before the deadline, and then for about 45 minutes you drink coffee, you talk about the football match, maybe somebody about the Turkish soap opera the night before and everything else. And then of course 45 minutes before the end of the working time you have mentally switched off, even though your computer is still flickering a little bit. So it really means that you have to be for 8 hours productively working and what you're doing, because we have to compare what we do here, not only in the manufacturing process, but also in the engineering or the administration, with our counterparts within the same company globally. So why should it be different here than in China, than in Mexico, Ireland, or the Czech Republic? And that is very difficult because you have to instill this idea to the people that nowadays it's a global competition. It's not a local competition. And these things, it's not really about government. It's about local mindset change and examples of foreign companies that are here that are changing the idea of what does work mean, and productivity means increasing of salaries. I'm not going to go in the debate of minimum wage, which way it should go, but I'm going to talk about if they are more productive, I have no problem I cannot pay the people the same amount as we as a company can pay in Czech Republic, unfortunately, because Czech Republic had the salaries we have now 25 years ago. It's a progression to get to that level. We cannot in 2 years have a quantum leap to get to Czech Republic salary levels. And also when we talk about unemployment, it's not 17.5%. Let's have a census and see what is the real unemployment and what's the real GDP per capita. I think one will go up, one will go down. But it's also how many people really want to work. Because we have a situation that after 2 days you offer somebody a job and they don't even show up afterwards. Oh, this is too difficult. What do you mean it's too difficult? You know, you're sitting down, it's highly automated job, or we have to work in 3 shifts. But that's normal nowadays. And they have to understand that this is the production process. We cannot be any different than other companies around the world, but it's certainly not Manchester in 1850. And Karl Marx is not going to write about the labor exploitation. We have moved on from that standpoint, even though we're a German company.
Okay, Victor, okay. I'm sorry we don't have the unions here, otherwise it will be a more heated debate because I think they will contradict you with your statements. But of course you have here the perspective from the employer's side. I would like to go now to Granit, and I would like her to address the issues. We talk about the new jobs. Those new jobs will require new skills, so what kind of skills would future work require? What does that mean for the skills development strategies, for the education systems? How do the education and training systems need to be transformed to equip the workforce with the skills and the competencies which are required in the future? And then how do we strike the balance between ensuring quality of the training on the one side and also then meeting the demand for more flexible and shorter learning pathways that usually the employers and the private sector is requiring? So I'd like to start with you as an expert in that.
Yeah, in such a short time, and I have to admit I've been challenged by hearing you. So I'll try to challenge you back if it's okay with you, okay? Okay, so I believe, and you will correct me if I'm wrong, that Israel, like Macedonia, we are lacking a lot of natural resources, like in Macedonia. But I truly believe that a precious asset of our countries, or I would say the natural resources, are sitting here in this hall. It's us. It's you. It's a human being. This is our natural resources. This is what we've got. And while hearing you, I don't want to think that I'm going up to work in 3 shifts. I don't want to know how much is the salary. I don't want to know what all the small details for me that you mentioned. I want to know that I'm part of a big thing, that you have a vision, that I'm engaged through that vision. And if you'll tell me what is the vision, and I will be part of that, I promise you, I will leave my community, I will leave my town, I will go wherever you would like to take me, and I wouldn't care about my salary. All I need to know that I'm making something that is bigger than some of the parts that we are. In that sense, it's very easy to motivate people to change their life, to move, but they need horizon. They need to know what is the professional path. We all need to know. I need to know where I'm heading to. I need to know what is the plan ahead. What am I part of? So that, if I know that, then I'll be able to do those kinds of change that you all described so well. And we're all being frustrated because we look at the people as an employee. We look at them as we are the bosses, they need to produce something. No, we are doing something together. We are creating something together. And for that, I will be able to move for my skills, move for my habits, move for my norms, move to learn something new. And if we'll go for that and we'll start even in the bakery, even in the supermarket, in the factories, in the industry, that will give people the ability, the motivation that we are all so lacking. And by that, we'll stop thinking about people, our prisoners in many ways, okay? The employee, they need to be here. We want to tempt them to stay with salaries? No, we can't. We can tap them in having added value. What is it, your added value? What is it that you are bringing to the game? What is it that you are bringing to our partnership? And we'll start thinking about those terms. I think that will be those of the skills that we're looking for. And if I'll take that another small step, and I hope you'll still with me about that, I want to take something. If you'll ask me, what are the education for the elite of society, or what is the education for the, I would say, the lower levels of society? I want to be honest with you. I think that all what we're teaching scientists in the sense of computers, automation, it's obvious, you know. Being able to read so many data, analyze, it's obvious. But this is the basic skills. This is, I would say, this is for the lower levels of society. The richest people, the elite of society, like you, will be sitting and having a dialogue, learning from each other. This is the education that we are looking for. Like Plato, like Socrates, they were sitting together, learning from each other, having this we're having now, a debate, hearing you. By hearing you, I'm asking myself already questions, you know. What is it that I'm listening to you? What is how it changed me, my perspective? And this kind of a dialogue, this is the best education that we can offer to a next generation. They will need to learn philosophy. They will need to learn to deal with complex issues, complex dilemma. They can't do that with a computer. They can't do that with another algorithm. We need to give them the tools. We need to start with that, counting on them, giving them opportunity to lead a change, to learn, to practice what we call leadership. Give them this change, opportunity, the stage, practice your leadership. Then they will be able to lead. No matter what the change will be, they will be ready for that. And I think that that sense of countries, if I will be opportunity to come to your country, I would say, take the experienced people. Give them opportunity to export their knowledge. Export to the village, export to United States, export to Europe. Give them opportunity to see the horizon and then come back. Create a mechanism that expert the expertise in your society. And by creating this kind of a mechanism, by investing in people, you are investing in our society.
Thank you. Thank you, Granit. So, during this panel, we just touch upon the issues of future work, about future jobs, future skills, and of course we talked about the challenges and we talked about the opportunities. How we as a Macedonian society will address these challenges, and these opportunities will determine our future. So, not going into another round of discussion, I would like to give more floor to the audience and to see whether somebody in the audience would like to say something, ask a question to the panelists, so we give more. The gentleman there first, and then Nikita.
Yes, thank you. My name is Gregory. I'm from Struga. I'm an attorney. And before my question, I would like to give a small remark. I expected these panel discussions to be more interaction, to have more interaction between the panelists and the participants, and I think that we both agree about that. So I would just give a warm suggestion to the organizers to leave a bit more time for questions.
There is enough time, so don't worry.
Yes. So to my question. First, Mr. Mizo, I am afraid to say that we are running out of waiters in Struga too. I would like to ask you a question. What do you think about lawyers? Are lawyers going to disappear with artificial intelligence? Because I read an article that is predicting exactly this. And the other question is, do you think that we are becoming more technology dependent, and is this dangerous for us?
Let me answer.
For all the participants.
I'll answer first the second question. Are we becoming technology dependent? I think that's the necessity of how the world is moving. Is that a bad thing? As long as we can control the technology, I think it's not a bad thing. It's going to make our life easier and our decisions easier, and we'll have more time to do more tasks within our working day. Is lawyer profession going to disappear? I think in Macedonia we have some time before that happens. But I think you would agree that we have too many lawyers, we have too many people that study social sciences rather than technical skills and engineering, because those are the type of jobs that we demand on the market. Those type of people can find a job very easily. If somebody studies law or if graduates in the next 6 months, how easy is it for that person to find a job in Macedonia? I think it will be not very easy at all, right?
Yeah. Thank you. Daniela, do you want to say it?
I wanted to react to this, because I think, again, it goes back to the issue, what are we measuring when we measure the impact of technology, digitalization, or these other mega trends on the quantity and quality of jobs? We are not very accurate in what we measure, because I'm not saying that the lawyers as an occupational family will disappear, but certain tasks that lawyers are often asked, and lawyers, and I could mention any professional family here, but certain tasks will disappear from their job description. So maybe not the entire job, and certainly not the occupational category, but certain tasks related to process management, like issuing contracts or validating processes. These tasks will be better done and more efficiently with lower margin of errors, probably by machines fed with the proper algorithms and so on. So we have to be very careful as to what we measure, because one of the faults that we found in some of the studies that predicted this very gloomy picture of total job destruction due to artificial intelligence and machines, their fault was that they were associating the destruction of certain tasks with the cancellation of the job and of the occupational category. And that's where some of the researchers in the room will agree with me that this is a bit of a research fallacy that some of the studies have had and continue to have.
I agree. It's not an all or nothing scenario, in my opinion, also. But
how the things with rule of law is happening in our country. I think we need some machines with artificial intelligence who are going to be instead of judges and prosecutors now.
And okay, so the next person, it was Nikica, and then. Okay, so you were asking for her. Okay, please introduce yourself and ask the question.
My name is Dragana. I have a question about auto job, especially for auto drive, the auto pivot. What is the responsibility if something makes wrong? If
somebody is killed?
If someone is killed, yes, because we mentioned previous session there are many bugs happen and it should happen. And now, what is the morality behind the auto pivot?
Who takes the responsibility? This is
So here I will first.
This is very critical. It's a crucial question because it's very sensitive.
It is. And instead of the panelists, I will give Nikica a chance to respond to that.
Oh no. First, let me say that if I had the chance to choose the panel, this would be the panel that I would like to be in. But thank you, everyone. So I'm now in a position to ask a question, actually, to think along with you. There was this recent study of World Bank saying that artificial intelligence will really kind of bring many occupations and jobs to end. But the least replaceable job position was which one? What do you think? So this is kind of a question.
Lawyer.
No.
It's not.
No,
sorry,
I
tried.
It's the ones who use the human brain, I believe.
No. Politicians.
Oh la la.
So we are stuck with politicians.
Yeah. Sorry, but machines cannot learn how politicians make decisions.
Which is worrying.
So, but my comment is other. I think that in most of the studies, what we see is that because I have 2 small children and I'm thinking of where to actually direct them to what is the future of professions and so on. And I think we have to talk about skills and not really professions, so take it step by step. And I think there are 2 skills which are very important: critical thinking skills and problem solving skills.
Yeah.
So this is what we should learn, every young person, this is what we should learn throughout life.
Yeah.
But actually, please. But actually, normally we do not classify these as skills. These are what we call core competences. So critical thinking and problem solving is something that probably the education system should enable us throughout our life and our children to have, because that's also important. It concerns us as well, because throughout our life now we need to train and retrain. And this also bears the question that who pays for skills? I always raise these questions in this type of gathering, because is that well, normally the education system, which is also financed with taxes, should be able to provide these core competencies to people, create a decent human being who are able to reason rationally, who use their brain to think critically, and they are able to solve problems. And skills should be provided by the companies because they know what skills they need and how they need to be forged to address a certain specific workplace-related issues. And I wanted to go back to, if you allow me, with the statistics about your question. Do you know, I mean, I'm generalizing and, lies, big lies and statistics, but you know how much time on average does a pilot on an airplane actually fly the airplane? Thank you. Like a percentage, like put a flight duration of 100%, let's say. So for how long is the pilot actually, he or she, actually piloting the plane?
50%.
7%, according to, I mean, again, it's an average, but the rest is done by the machine. However, this is a big issue about who takes decisions in critical moments. And when we saw what was happening with the MAX 7, MAX 8, the airplane that was taking nosedives, right? That's a typical issue that we should discuss during our dialogues as to how much shall human beings give in to technology and decision making that's made elsewhere but by the human brain. So I think these are the discussions worth having. We're a little bit constrained by time, I agree with you, but these are the questions that we should debate, but not only here in this relatively privileged environment. These are the questions that we should have in Struga, in the schools, and with the people who are, most of them may be going to have jobs in the primary sector, some of them will be working in manufacturing, some of them will be working in the service sector, but still, there are jobs that are 9 to 5, and they have to be done. Some of them are not so inspiring, but these people do need to have a voice on how they see the future of their jobs, I believe, personally.
So I'm sorry, there is no question about who is going to be responsible in a case of accident, but yes, please.
Hi everyone, my name is Nina Nikolic and I'm one of the co-founders of Startup Macedonia. What we do in the past 5 years, we've actually worked a lot in the mindset change. So a lot of people not just think about getting a secure job, but also thinking about starting their own innovative businesses. So first I have one question and then I have one consultation. Let's say I would like to agree with Ms. Granit that what this country lacks, and we can all probably agree with, is a complete vision of where this country should go in terms of future of jobs and also skills, but also the future of the country and how we can create better future for the people that actually decided to stay here and live. And on the other hand, my question would be, now that we see this trend about the 4-day working week, I would like to ask you, what do you think about this type of new format of working hours and 4-day working week? Because more or less people that are in the tech industry, we all more or less work 24/7. Let's say we're always on our phones, we reply on emails while we're commuting. So what do you say about this type of new rule and the 4-day working week? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Where is that rule? In Macedonia?
No, it's something which is tried in other countries, but I would like to mention, I was just talking to my colleague Daniela before we started this panel, and actually there's a statistic, so I don't know if the camera can catch it and then put it there, the slide. You see?
Oh, it's gone off.
No, it's here.
Yeah.
You see? So this is the slide which is showing the productivity per hour worked. And what country do you think is the best in productivity per hour worked in the world? In OECD countries. Just a guess. No, it's France. France, per hour worked, France has the best productivity in the world. The second one is Denmark, then it's Germany, Sweden, US. UK is actually half of the productivity per hour worked compared to France. So that might answer a little bit about the question about the working hours, about how many days in a week we should work. And then I ask Granit if she wants to add anything regarding the other part of the question.
Honestly, I'm not surprised by what you said about France. I did my PhD, so I lived in Paris, so I can share with you. What I like most is exactly what I try to describe. They have a long vacances, you're probably familiar with that. I truly believe that you give time to a person and he will come with new ideas. And I truly believe what you said, we have jobs from 9 to 5. Yes, but even the cleaner in a pharmacy or in a factory of medicine needs to know that what she's doing is very crucial to the success of the mission of organization. I don't know if you had the opportunity, but you can Google it and see one of the head of general director of one of the famous companies of pharmacy medicine have declared last week that their mission is to make money for the stakeholders. And it seems to me that he got the wrong message from us. Nobody have, kind of made a shame to him. Because the mission of his organization is to bring health to people. And sometimes we forget that. But I truly believe that no matter what you do, you can work 4 hours a day, you can work 4 days in a week, but you need to find the path that would give you to do the things that you are part of that you believe in, and understanding that education can't be in elementary, high school, and university. If we want to educate people, if we want to support the professional path, we need to continue to do that by sharing the responsibility between the government, the education system, the business people, and the employee, and the worker by himself. He needs to know that he will be left back if we don't motivate to study, to learn, and to move, and not to think that I'm losing my employee. I'm gaining my partner if he moves to another organization, and he will continue to do, and maybe in the next step he'll be back to me, working with me. He might be living in Macedonia, going to Europe, but then if I create a horizon for him, he'll be back. So the question is not how many hours do we work, know how productive you are. You'll be productive if you take the time to come with your new ideas, to bring your ideas to organization, and then, from my point of view, you can work 5 minutes a day if you made it, if you achieved it. I don't want to measure the time. I want to measure the change. I want to measure how we change society, how we gain our goals, how we made the impact, the influence that we're wishing for.
Thank you, Granit. We have time for one more question. So is there somebody in the audience, which is the lady there, and then the gentleman here? So you just put the 2 questions, and then we will see, maybe they coincide.
Thank you very much. My name is Marina Chevska. I'm owner of the Center for Business Psychology in Macedonia. And 12 years I'm working with the companies and individuals to grow the collective intelligence in Macedonia through the personal development. And what I hear here, that we have to be critical, that we have to achieve, but without the dreamer in us, we cannot do anything. Because even the technology is made by the dreamers. And what is also very important, what I really work on it a lot, it's the balance between the ego and the soul. Because the ego is an achievement, but the ego serves the soul. And what this country needs is the soul. And the soul is connected with the collective intelligence. So that's, I just
Thank you for your intervention. And the gentleman here to put a question, and then we are closing this session.
Thank you. Zoran Jovanovski from the Economic Chamber of Macedonia. I have a question for Victor Mizo. What do you think about a company that would change 17 CEOs in 28 years, for example? That's our Ministry of Education. We have changed 17 ministers in 28 years of being independent country. This is a very brutal indicator of having no vision whatsoever, nothing that, like a common ground, whoever comes into power, this is a long-term concept, education, and doing something that will just be a continuation and upgrade what has been the basics. So we lack that. And this comes on the top of 45 years of living in socialism, where people believe that they are entitled to something, and they just expect that the government has to take care of them. That's why the people want to work in the public administration and expect that somehow the public administration will give a job to them. Another problem that comes out of this is the overprotection from the parents. Because the parents want their kids not to be bothered with any external testing, anything that would put them on the spot and show their weaknesses. So it was not the kids who were protesting against the external testing, you know what I'm talking about, it was actually the parents. So they were first in line. So that's why to get to today you cannot find workers, because we see in the chamber the problem with the dual education. It's the parents who are saying no. My kid is not going to work in your factory there. My kid is going to university, and it will will get a university degree, who knows, somewhere in the country. We understand well on this. And then we'll have a degree. And then we'll expect from whoever now acting, we know employment agencies, we know who is doing that, to get a job somewhere in the public administration. For me, it's extremely simple. It takes the leaders of this country to sit together, decide where they see this country 25 years from now, set the goals, and say whoever comes in power will just upgrade, and it takes courage to do that. Until we do this, and for me this is simple, this is really simple. It takes courage to do that. Unless we do that, we don't have a system, we have the young people leaving the country, and everything will be just an individual initiative. We live in Skopje, where we have the FX3X company producing visual effects for the blockbuster movies from Hollywood, and at the same time we don't have a number of workers for very much simpler jobs to find them.
Thank you.
So yeah, I'm sorry for the long.
That's a great next point we can have in the lunch conversation afterwards. So let's give a real quick hand to the panel real quick. Thank you so much. And before everybody gets up, I have 4 quick points I want to make before lunch. One quick reminder, again, the business-to-business sessions are being held on the floor below. If you want to have conversations with other business leaders that are here, talk about ways you guys can work together, we encourage you to have those conversations downstairs in room D throughout the entire summit. Secondarily, there's going to be a breakout session that starts at 3:30. The topic is going to be on leveraging funds for green investments. That's going to be downstairs in rooms A, B, and C. So you want to go to that, you can do that as well. Secondarily, at 3:30 as well in here, there's going to be a session on family business, which I highly encourage you to be here. John Betov's brother Tom is going to be here to help lead that conversation about family business, both in Macedonia and abroad. Additionally, if you're using social media, the hashtag for this entire thing is the MK 2025 Summit. So anything on Twitter, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, use that. Last and most importantly, lunch is from now until 3:30. Please be back here in your seats, ready to go for the last 2 sessions of the day. So thank you, everybody.